morning, Captain Frank here. We're going to talk about today the things that nobody ever wants to talk about, and that's your trailer. We all enjoy boating and we look forward to that, but your trailer is what gets you there and gets you home. Definition of a bad day is when you have a problem with your trailer, either going or coming. Difficult to overcome. So let's look at a couple things that you should be aware of to try and eliminate that. So to keep this simple, let's start at the front and work our way to the back. The most obvious thing is going to be the coupler and hooking it to the back of the vehicle, the truck or the car, whatever you have. There's basically 3 different ball sizes when it comes to boat trailers, unless you get to something really big and commercial. The most common is a 2-inch ball. You can identify which trailer ball you need for your coupler. It's written on the coupler. Now sometimes this is hard to see because this trailer here is painted and they painted over it, so you have to look carefully, all right? The ball is pretty easy to tell. Right on the top of the ball, it'll say 2-inch. The other second most common is a bigger ball size. It's 2 5/16 inch. So if you got a boat probably in the 23-foot or greater range, it's more than likely going to be a 2 5/16 inch ball. Well, now that you've determined you got the correct ball, let's talk about the latching mechanism. This is a pretty common one right here. You can see we got a little clip. You just lay it over and it's got a latch that connects in here. This is an okay way to put this in there for a safety pin. But what I would suggest for this is go buy you a padlock. A really bad day is you go out boating and you come back and your trailer's gone. So if you put a padlock in there, it'll help eliminate that. Say, well, how can they steal my trailer? Well, when there's no boat on there, all they got to do is pull a truck right up next to it, pick up the trailer, set it on their ball, and they're gone in seconds. So a simple lock to put on here would eliminate that. I want to talk about this pin right here. I spoke to you earlier and I talked about putting a padlock on the coupler so they don't steal your trailer. But they sell locking pins. This one's just got a clip, but if it were me, I'd buy that locking pin, because the reality of it is, again, no boat on the trailer. They can come pull that pin, steal your receiver and your trailer. So what we're looking at here is a larger trailer. This one's equipped with surge brakes. What that means is when you stop, it's attached to the back of the vehicle. The trailer continues to come forward. This receiver is going to push in the trailer itself, and there's a master cylinder, just like what you have on your vehicle, to apply the brakes. So the surging effect is what applies the brakes. So along with that, there's some fluid that you ought to check. It's very simple, just regular old DOT3 brake fluid if you need some, but keep in mind, this is not a consumable. So if you're low on brake fluid, that means you got a leak someplace. So you just pop off the cap and you look down in here. Well, glad we checked this one. As you can see, there's no fluid in there. So what that means is we've got a problem with the brake system, maybe a hole in a line, the line is rusted through, we're not sure, but this is a pretty serious problem. All right, next thing we want to look at is the trailer light connector. This is a larger one. It's fairly common on the larger trailers. And if you have a truck, it'll be this type. There's a bunch of different pins in here. On this particular trailer, what we're going to use is we're going to have a hot wire for the tail lights. That's when you have your headlights on. You're going to have a hot wire for the left turn and brake. Those are on the same signal. And then you're going to have a wire for the right turn and brake. The one other wire that's in here is going to be a white wire, which is for the ground. So let me give you the colors in case you have to look into these. Brown is for the tail lights, green is for the right turn signal and brake, and yellow is for the left turn signal and brake. Now there's one more that on other trailers becomes very important. So let me show you that one. This is a common plug, especially on smaller trailers, but on a bigger trailer, it'll be similar, but it has one extra pin. This is the one I talked about before. This blue wire is a wire that disconnects the brakes or allows the brakes to free flow when you're backing up in reverse. If you have disc brakes on the trailer and this wire's not hooked up, you won't be able to back it up. But if you look at this plug here, you can see we got a problem. I'm going to go across here. The first one, because it's unique, it's different, that's the ground. That would be the white wire. The next one would be the brown wire for the tail lights. Then we have the yellow wire, which is for the left turn signal and brake. Wait, we don't have the pin for the green one. So obviously they're not going to work in this particular application, so this plug is going to have to be replaced. This blue wire, the pin's okay. You can see all of these connections are dirty. So what that means is you should clean these on a regular basis, put some WD-40, some anti-corrosion spray, something like that on to keep them clean. especially if you're pulling your trailer later in the season. You get some salt on the road, these things will get pretty ugly pretty quick. All right, let's talk about the winch up here a little bit and the strap that's on it, or cable, whatever you have. You always want to take a good look at this and make sure everything's in place, make sure nothing's loose, the handle's tight, the mechanisms work like they should. But a common problem in the beginning of a new season is these straps, these nylon straps have been sitting out and they've been sitting in the sun. You can see this side here has been sitting down, this side here has been sitting up. So what happens is, if you're storing your boat outside particularly, it's going to get rain, snow, sun, this, that, whatever. These straps will start to dry rot. And when you need it the most, when you're trying to pull the boat back on the trailer and put tension against it, or if you're in a situation where you have to stop quickly, this strap is what secures the front of the boat. So when in doubt, throw it out. Get you a new strap. They're not hard to change. They're not expensive either. All right. Well, here's a big, beautiful spare in great condition. One thing I want to point out, if you need to change this on the side of the road, once the tire goes flat that's on the trailer, if you just have a regular wrench, like a breaker bar, or even a T-handle, and you try and take those nuts loose, the hub's going to spin. So you're not going to be able to get it off. I mentioned before that you should check the threads. If they're rusty, clean those up. But what I would suggest, if you trailer a lot and go long distances where the potential for this is high, that you buy you one of these. It's a battery powered, this one happens to be a Milwaukee impact wrench. So you can get those lug nuts off, okay, once you have a flat tire. Because I'm going to tell you, a T-handle or a breaker bar won't do it. The other thing you need to have is a jack that will work and jack that trailer and that axle up. Keep in mind, when that boat's on that trailer, you need a substantial jack. The little one that comes with your car is probably not going to lift it if you got a bigger boat. So make sure you have the equipment you need to change this spare on the side of the road before you leave. Well, we're going to use this spare tire as an example here of where you can check on the tire to determine the proper tire pressure. Trailer tires are trailer tires. They're not car tires. They're designed for a different application. So make sure if you're replacing tires that you put the proper tire on your trailer. Now on the trailer there's information. If you look down on here, it'll give you the max load that this tire can handle. But as you read a little farther along in the nomenclature, it's going to give you the maximum pressure. This particular one is 65 psi. What I would suggest that you don't go to the max, you go slightly below it, maybe 62, 63. Because when the tire's going down the road, it's going to heat up and it's going to build a little bit more pressure. So here's the tire installed. There's a couple things you should check on a regular basis. You want to check the torque on the lug nuts. They're typically 95 to 100 foot-pounds. You want to make sure those are good. Also make sure they're not rusty. Because if they're really rusty, you're going to want to take them off now and clean the threads before you put them on and put them back on. Because if you have a flat tire and you need to change this on the road, you don't want to have to be dealing with that out there. The other thing I want to point out is this little guy right here, this little green cap. Doesn't seem like much, but you got a tire going down the road, you're in mud, you're in this, you're in that. It'll fill up the little cavity where you're going to put air in the tire. And then that dirt and stuff will get caught underneath the Schrader valve and it won't seal. Old school trick to see if these are leaking, you kind of wet your finger and put it over the top, forms a little thing. If it's leaking, it'll blow some bubbles out on you. Or if you don't want to do that, you can spray some soapy water on it. But again, check the lug nuts. You want to look at stuff. If you see a bunch of grease or a bunch of mess on the rim here, you need to identify, where that's coming from and deal with it. You don't want to deal with trailer problems along the side of the road. All right, here's a very common hub that is on a lot of trailers, and you can even add these to your trailer if you don't have something like this. They're called Bearing Buddies, that's the brand. But what makes them unique is the fact that when you pull this boot off, this cover off, you can see there's a fitting in the inside here, a grease fitting. And it also has a spring and a piston. What this is designed to do is when you put grease in there, it compresses the spring, but the spring holds pressure inside the hub. So when you back the boat trailer in the water, it keeps from water going in the backside of the hub. The spring is there because the fact is you're going down the road, especially if it's got brakes, this hub will get warm. So that grease will expand and contract and that spring can absorb it and go with it. the bra, they call it here, the buddy bra goes on there. It keeps the grease in there, but one of the things that I would highly suggest when you put it on, you take a little tool and you peel this back and you burp it. If you just push it on with grease on there, it builds up pressure, and next thing you know, it'll push that bra off and you'll be buying another one. So you need to burp it when you put it back on. Well, now we're to the back of the trailer. What I want to talk to you about is a couple of things, but probably one of the most important are these guys right here. You want a set of good hold-down straps. You want to make sure they're appropriate for the size boat you have. I know you can go to some of the little convenience stores and dollar stores and whatever they are, and you can buy some little ratchet straps. They're only good for 60, 80 pounds. This boat that we're looking at here weighs a lot more than that. So bigger is better when it comes to this. You always want to try and get them as straight in line with the back of the boat in the trailer that you can. That way they're more effective. Well, look what we got here. We got sunshine. The water's not hard anymore, so it's time to enjoy this boating season. Hopefully some of the tips that I gave you about the trailer, or at least remind you some things that you already knew, will help you have a good and safe boating season.